Hello, everybody. Welcome to Concept Artists of Television and Film. My name is Imogen Chayes. I've been a concept artist for about 8 years. I've worked on shows such as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Terminator, Madam Web, She-Hulk. But I am so excited to be moderating this panel of these gloriously talented artists. So yeah, let's get this show on the road.
All right.
I just want to start off by going down the line and have you guys introduce yourselves, give us a little background, how you got in the industry, projects you worked on, etc. Let's start with Constantine.
Oh God, what? Why me? It's Luca's first.
I said you.
Yeah. Hi. Hi, Constantine Sekeris. Been a concept artist for too many years. Blessed to do what I do. Very fortunate. And I'm at heart a creature designer. I've been doing it ever since I was 21 years old. So I've been doing it, close to over 30 years now. So yeah, it's been a good ride. I've worked on stuff. I've worked with Marvel. I've been fortunate to work with Marvel, Universal, Sony, Avatar. I'm kind of fortunate to be able to go from specialty costume to creature design, and so yeah, I love my job, and I'm very lucky to do it.
Awesome. Phil.
I'm Phillip Boutté Jr. I'm a concept artist. I've been working now for, I think, close to almost 16 years. I also started a company called 9B Collective Studio, which is the first Black-owned concept art studio that's primarily BIPOC. I have worked on different projects, Marvel, Black Panther. I worked on Wakanda Forever. So
Get a little closer to the mic, Phil.
Worked on Black Panther,
There you go.
Wakanda Forever, Inception, and just drawing. I want to say drawing has been really a blessing in my life. It's allowed me to do a lot of things and allowed me to do a lot of creative things that I never would have gotten to do. I've done 3 world tours with Madonna. So I'd say if you are loving to draw, just keep drawing and it'll take you so many different places.
Raphael Phillips.
Hi, I'm Raph. I started out in video games, and I'm new to concept, but I've been working for about 17 years. So started off, worked on things like Red Dead Redemption, going into VFX, worked on Black Panther, Thor, but then started concept about 3 years ago because of this guy, and he brought me in on Jupiter's Legacy. And so I've done stuff for Marvel, done stuff for just a whole bunch of people. But the through line for me is just starting out as a 3D character artist. That 3D can actually now take you into many different things, including collectibles, work for Sideshow. So I get to do all these things, games, VFX, concept, all at the same time. So it's pretty cool, and I'm very lucky.
All right, again, don't be afraid of the mic, guys.
Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Hopwood, and I'm profusely sweating right now. I have worked for most of the major studios for the vast bulk of the past 4-something years pre-pandemic. I was working at DC and shows like Titans, Black Lightning, Superman, and I worked on The Boys. I worked on Soldier Boy, which was really wonderful. Characters like Harley Quinn for DC. And more recently made the transition to Marvel on their streaming services. On their streaming services for Marvel, and this is really close now. And I've been very lucky to be working at Marvel my last 3 shows. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what the streamers are, but I've been at Marvel recently, so. But I've been very lucky being able to sit up here with all these people who I consider very close friends and, as far as I'm concerned, family. So I'm just very happy to be here with all of you guys today.
My name is Gina DeDomenico. And I've been doing this for 30 years, so I've got all these guys beat. I started as, I went to school for fashion illustration, and it basically, once I graduated, it completely died, and the only thing I thought I could do was go into fashion design. So I went into film, and I assisted on film and TV for a while until I found out there was this weird job where you could illustrate costumes that had to be made. So I had always been able to draw because I wanted to be a fashion illustrator, and I was able, because I met everybody and I was on set all the time, to start illustrating costumes. And so that's how I got started. And I started it in living color.
I wanted her to tell you guys the first job she did because it's awesome.
In living color. And now my claim to fame is The Boys. So it's quite a transition.
And Luca.
Hello, I'm Luca Nemolato. I'm an Italian artist. I started in fine art back in Italy, and then around 11 years ago I moved to LA. Thanks to the normal school, I was able to find this job as a concept artist, and I slowly started my career, and it's been pretty great. I've been working on projects like The Shape of Water, Jungle Cruise, Black Adam, and some video games. So we basically range from, pretty much all of us on this panel will range from video games to movies, TV, and commercials. So been very fortunate to do so.
Thank you, guys. All right, well, there you have it. So for this panel, I decided to focus on the life of a concept artist working in Hollywood. Like, how do we navigate the ups and downs? How do we balance this job with our normal lives? And basically, you know, everything we have to deal with once we've finally broken into this industry. So I would like to start with Phil. I was wondering if you could explain in a nutshell, what is concept art? What does a concept artist do? And take us through our job process from how we get hired onto projects to what's actually done with the work once we're finished. And then maybe also touch on maybe the differences between, because a lot of us work in costume versus visual development, the differences between that, et cetera.
Okay.
And then the history of the world.
Was that wrong?
I was like, I'm over 40 now, so I don't know if I'll remember all of that. Concept artists, you know, at least I know for all of us, we're literally on the front lines we're the first stab at visually trying to figure out what something is from the script to, you know, actually showing what it is. So working with our clients or our bosses, it's more or less they hire us as think tanks to basically try to figure out what things look like and how we're going to represent them. That could be characters, that can be creatures, it can be environments, it can be props, it can be vehicles, it can be so many different things. And a lot of us have our own, like, you know, specific like skill sets and or ways that we go about approaching this, whether it be history or research, or like I know for a lot of the creature designers in the room, they do a lot of anatomy studies in animals. Like it's so many different things, right? So our studying, we're hired for our brains, basically. We're the ones that actually think up a lot of the, you know, the different ideas and try to put them into a format to where people can make decisions, right? So what ends up happening is we work our days, we're developing things, figuring things out, collaborating, working together. Then our drawings go to meetings, like with the directors, the producers, et cetera. They make decisions, either say we want more notes, we want more iterations, or they say this one's great. Once it's great, specifically I work in costume, so once it comes back, that drawing will then go down the line through the costume department to be made and manufactured and turned into the thing that you end up seeing on screen. And that goes for all of the different processes here. So it really, just think about it, I think about we're on the front lines of design and creativity. We're brought on very early, sometimes even before pre-production, to start thinking about what these things will be so people can make decisions and follow along.
Awesome, thank you. And I also just have to say, like, it is actually wild for me to be in this position moderating Phil, because a story we like to tell a lot is that when I was a little baby fashion student, he came and visited my class, and apparently I was the only one that actually took what he said to heart.
She's literally the only one that listened to me.
and ran with it for
she
concept art.
ran with it, and the best thing about Imogen was that she recognized, one of the things I tell students often is to be a self-starter. If you don't have work, make work. If you don't know what you're doing, find out, research, learn, actually sit and be actionable. And Imogen is all of those things. She was at fashion school at FITM. I went and talked to them about my job, about concept art. She recognized very early on that although she had her fashion skills and was able to make things, and she had the sketching skills of that, she didn't have conceptual skills. And that's when she decided that she was going to go to Nomen and also do that. So she went from one program to another program, and now you can see it in her work. She's combined the knowledge of those both together in a brilliant way, which is now she understands construction, she knows how to make clothing, and she knows how to visually represent all of that in a conceptual way.
Oh my God, thank you.
Way to go,
so
Imogen.
much. Wow. All right. So next, I kind of wanted to touch on how sometimes as artists, we have to either make transitions or evolve while working in the industry. There are times where either technology changes or it's time to move to a whole different industry in order to challenge our skill sets or just sort of keep up with, what's in demand. And for that, I actually would love to hear from Gina and Raph. Gina, I know you started out as a traditional artist, like you said, and then had to essentially evolve into learning digital, even 3D, to sort of keep up with what's in demand for,
I appreciate you saying I evolved into it.
Yeah.
Chris has just cried my way.
I mean, no one has to know that.
So when I started, it was all paint. It was gouache. We came to work with bristle paper and gouache and every pencil firmness possible, and it was a huge load that I'd bring in. And we had one chance to do the design, and if somebody wanted it in another color, it was like another week of work. So it was beautiful. It was tactile, and it felt great. And I had an entire career, and then I decided to take a break to have my children and raise them. So I thought, okay, I'm just gonna stop right here. I had my children, and I came back 10 years later, and everybody was gone. It was all women with their paintbrushes and paints, and then it was all men with what I said were barbecues. Like, what are these things? What are these things they're drawing on? And so I called the president of our union then, it was Mary Rose, and I said, what are these things these guys are drawing on? And she said, don't worry about it, it's not gonna last. And so I decided I had to go back to work, and that was the key, is I had no choice. I was in a position where I had to support my children, so I had no choice. I think if I had a choice, I wouldn't have done it. So I went back to work with the paints, and I got to my first job, and they didn't know I was bringing paints. And I arrived, I set up, and some people came in, and they started hysterically laughing. And that's when I knew things had really, really, really changed, and that I had to get up to speed. So I started taking classes, like character design and all these random classes, and none of them fit the mold that I needed to learn how to be a costume concept artist, because I had always just worked in costume. I don't do anything else. And I found a private teacher, and I met with him 3 times a week, and he taught me. It took a solid year to learn it. And I have to say, if I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't have done it. I cried my whole way. I hated it. I hate the I hated everything about it. It all felt really wrong. And now you cannot get me to touch paints. It's like, oh no, oh no. I love it. I embrace it. I'm the biggest collector of Cintiqs and a representative for Wacom. And so the transition was hard. I know there's other things I have to learn now, like ZBrush, but I don't have to, so it's not happening. So you can do it if you have to, if you feel like you have to. Kind of like working out.
We did a 3D
Thanks,
class
Gina.
together. You learned how to sculpt a stick of butter. It was pretty good.
Stick of butter.
Stick of butter, just a rectangle, rounded edges. She did a great job.
It was like the first week, and he was creating, you were doing
I think Ursula.
Yeah. And I was trying to make a square with rounded edges.
It's like it was a 7-hour class. I had Ursula by the end of it, and I look over, and it's literally just a stick of butter with rounded edges. And I fell out of my seat laughing.
ZBrush. I don't have to.
But you don't have to.
Raph, you actually recently moved to film and TV from VFX and video games as a 3D artist. So what was that transition like for you?
It was really hard, and primarily because with video games specifically, and VFX as well, it's you're an artist, but you're kind of a technical artist. You can't just only have the art skill. You have to be able to get something in game. You have to get something in the pipeline. Like it's really hard. Like it's not, and they don't get paid what they should. But that's a whole other question. But so then you go to design, and you think, well, I can make anything. That this is easy. No, because most of the time you're given a concept that somebody has already fleshed out, and you don't appreciate the work that goes in design until you have to do it yourself. So the first 4 months on Jupiter's Legacy, I was every day complaining to Phil. I was like, what the hell is, I'm giving her what she wants and she's not, and it was just like, and then Luca came in and I'm like, who is this mother, like it was just like, he just came in showing me up and I'm like, what the hell is going on? But then it's like, I remember I was working on Lady Liberty's glove, and this had to be like 2.5 months in of every day just pounding my head against the pavement because I couldn't figure out why the boss didn't understand the gray screen. Like in video games, you can have your lead or whoever come by and it's like, oh yeah, here's my sculpt, and they get it. They understand what they're looking at. They understand what a gray shaded model is. They have the imagination, and they've done it before, but they have the foresight to know what this will be. In design, they understand only what you put before them. So if it's not shiny and if it's not what it's supposed to be, people won't understand it. I mean, directors, producers, everybody, they won't understand it. So just making that transition to understanding design and getting something to look good, but more so the speed to do it is very, very hard. But I mean, it can be done, but it just took a lot of time. But now that I'm on this side, I don't have to worry about getting anything in game. I don't have to worry about rendering. I just can key shot, substance something real quick, and then just paint over it. And it's beautiful. And it's one angle. It doesn't have to be 360, clean, no baking UVs, no baking,
no clean topology.
There's also just the knowledge of being able to explain things to people in a way that they can understand, right? So I remember when Raph started, I was trying to explain things to him, but in a 2D way, in a way that I do things, but it was also hard to know the language because he's very technical, right? So when Luca came, it was the best thing because Luca could show him both, but Luca makes things Luca makes complicated things sound really easy. So he's like, oh, I don't know, and then there's a helmet and you're like, how'd you do that?
He had a helmet in 15 minutes within his first day and options. And I was like, what the hell is going on? But that's, when you get that fast, that's what you can do. You can pull from a library. With games and stuff, you don't get to keep your assets. With VFX, you don't get to keep your assets. So you're starting from scratch every single time. But with this, you can build up your own library and become really fast, like Luca. So,
but you
I
never
remember I was trying to liberate you, because I know I'm not as technical as you with 3D, but I know where you come from. I studied the UVs and all that, and I realized early that's not cool. That's not fun. And I remember seeing you I was like, Raph, forget about the UVs, break the topology, paint over it, that's it. And you're like, really? I was like, yeah, that's all you have to do. You're doing concept now, man. You're free.
And yes, by the way, of any of these questions, feel free to chime in if I didn't direct it at you. Okay, so for this next question, I kind of wanted to focus on balance. A lot of us have been in this industry for quite some time, and it's common that we choose to juggle multiple projects at once, even if it's probably not the wisest decision at certain times, but we do it. We can't help ourselves. We'll be on a project and something else will come across our desk that's too cool to pass up, and we'll do the juggling of the jobs. And it becomes kind of a challenge to maintain a sense of balance between all those projects. So Constantine and Luca, I know this is definitely the case for you guys.
I don't know what you're talking about. I only work with one person at a time.
No.
Very loyal.
You both work and actually many different departments of a project, which is why you're constantly juggling all these things. You do props, creatures, costumes, all of it. And also you actually work on the same projects together a lot. So one, how do you balance and organize your schedule with all of these projects, like getting into the mindset of each different one? It could be totally different genres and you have to switch back and forth in between them. And on top of that, how do you balance working on so many projects and having a life, essentially?
Yeah.
Go for it, Constantine.
I'll start first. I love what I do. Even at this age, it's like a drug. I'm not gonna lie.
It is. It's totally. It's like meth.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still very much a kid about the work that we do, and so it's very hard for me, and especially right now in my career at where I am, a lot of the projects that I'm very lucky and fortunate that come across my email, it's very, very hard for me to say no to. And to be honest with you, I'm a workaholic. Everyone on this panel knows. I'm Saturday nights at home working, Sundays working. Yeah, and balance, it's hard. The one thing that I do keep up is my health. So I really take the time to go to the gym, eat healthy, stay as healthy as possible, because otherwise, if you don't have your health, I can't do the hours that I do. And yeah, there are times I work on 4 projects at once, and I really, everything is very disciplined in the respects of like, okay, I have 3 hours on this, okay, I can take a half-hour break here, then I have 4 hours on that, go to the gym for an hour, hour and a half, come back, different mindset, start now the creature project, whereas earlier I had a Marvel gig where it's like a specialty. And so to change up mindsets, what I do is I do look at films that whatever project I'm on will help put me in that mindset. I gather myself around references, images that will help me stay in that mindset. It's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, it's just no, it's not. Everything is a challenge. Every project comes with its own problems, and we're technicians and we're problem solvers. We do use art and technology to basically give producers and studios what they need for their films and projects. But at the same token, we're also a bit of architects, because there are a lot of problem solvings, whether it be specialty, whether it be creatures, and then I come also from the background of practical effects. So I've been fortunate enough to be able to work around talent that has taught me materials, process on how to build things from creatures and also from costumes. So I'm very fortunate in that respect. So I hope I've answered some. I know Luca will have more.
It's a good answer. Yeah, definitely the balance of health. And like, there's no way around. Our job takes long hours. Like, you're not gonna do a 9 to 5 if you work in this industry, especially as a concept artist. And when you are a freelancer, like most of us, all of us, you are gonna end up juggling a lot of projects. And what I personally do, I agree with Constantine, keep your health up. The gym, you have to go work out, go for a run. Me and Constantine also go for a lot of hikes. That gets so we can get away from the computer, away from work for a bit. We end up talking about work while we hike. But, that's another problem.
Yeah.
But what I also do is like the mind of a concept artist for me is has compartments, and because we work with characters, creatures, costumes, props, keyframes, and we get asked to do all of that at any time. Like, they can just turn around, it's like, oh, I need a keyframe, and you have 3 days, or oh, do this creature, do this costume, do this prop. So you have to have the mental flexibility to jump from one to another. And one thing that I use is that I write everything down that I have to do, and just mentally try to calculate how long it's going to take for me to do each based on the deadlines I have. And it's quite tough, because sometimes they change deadlines on you and then you freak out. So you have to keep calm, and meditation helps a lot with that. Eating healthy, I eat 1 meal a day, so that during the day I can work longer hours, but also feel better, because I felt every time I was just eating lunch, then I was useless for a few hours. So I now just eat one meal a day, I work out 3 times a week, I keep their rhythm. Anything that happens, if I'm late with a deadline or there's a meeting, the hour of working out, you cannot touch it. Like whatever happens, you go. You shut down the computer, don't answer your phone, you go work out, and then you answer when you get back. There's always going to be time. What I say to my friends all the time too, they press you with deadlines, but I mean, honestly, our job is cool, but who's going to die if I don't send this image, you know? We're not saving lives, so just remember that.
If I may just continue on that, in the sense of like staying in the mindset or staying excited about either a process or something that we're tackling, I always, with every project, try to present sketches, paintings, and also 3D. I want the client to know that you're hiring an artist, a designer, versus just a technician. To be able to showcase all facets of what we do. I'm not just a 3D modeler, I'm not just a Photoshop painter. I can sketch and I can present ideas, and that's ideal also, and that keeps it alive for me. Sometimes if I'm in a project and things are a little bit stale for me because I've been in the 3D world too much, I will just get into Photoshop and paint or just literally sketch. I love sketching. I have a sketchbook. I sketch as much as I can. So
yeah, we do thrive with the jumping from one thing to another. That's like what keeps our job fun. The fact that if you only do one thing for the rest of your life, it would be so boring. Yeah. And the fact that you don't know what they're going to ask you next to draw, that's what keeps me going. Yeah.
So really quick, I just want to say too that something he just said is really important for some of you guys that are building portfolios. It's really important, or at least I know what I look for when I'm trying to hire people or trying to get someone on a job, is thought process and design. So the fact that Constantine can show me, he can show me a sketch, he can show me then something in 3D, he can show me multiple things. Not only can I see the design finished, but I can also break it down on a basic level, and I can see his thought process and that there was thought behind what the design was. That's the most important part. So if you're just showing finished stuff, or if you're showing like fan stuff, like stuff that you've painted from someone else's design, although I can see you can technically paint and draw, I don't know if you can design. So it's really important to show that aspect of it.
I'm curious between the two of you, how many jobs you're currently on?
I'm here. I'm not working right now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
You're 4.
Okay,
There you go.
some real talk here. This is really not an easy industry to break into whatsoever. And it's definitely not easy to navigate once you're actually in it. Like, we're constantly facing insecurities, ups and downs. The feast or famine nature of this job can really take its toll on you. And, you know, we all sort of deal with a thing called imposter syndrome. I have a funny story to tell about that. So I worked for Marvel Visual Development for about a year during COVID. And I was hired around the same time as Mike Uwandi, who you might know as a legendary concept artist as well. And he and I were chatting one day, and I was just like, oh my God, Mike, like, I feel like I'm struggling every day here. Like, I can't keep up with anything. I'm surrounded by all these like titans of the industry. And yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. And he was like, what are you talking about? I heard you're killing it. I feel like I'm struggling every day. Like, this is the hardest job I've ever had to do. I'm like, what are you talking about? I heard you're killing it. So it goes to show that a lot of this stuff is in our head, but I believe it actually keeps us striving for better and to keep improving our skills. So Greg, I was wondering if you could actually expand on all of that and talk about imposter syndrome and sort of the insecurities we face and whatnot.
Okay. I know, seriously, I love it. It's like, what new technologies? How many jobs do you work? Greg, what's it like to feel like a fraud every single day?
You know you're good at this topic. Don't pretend.
But no, it's a really interesting question. It's something that I think is really important, because it's very easy to sit up here and make it seem like we work on all the jobs, we work for Marvel, we do this and that, but it's like there is a real toll that all this stuff does take behind the scenes. Like, the reason why this struck me was several years ago at Comic-Con, Jim Lee was doing like a live demo where he drew on stage, and someone asked him a question about like how awesome, it was a question about what he thought of his own work, and honestly, he went into this whole barrage of like this inner dialogue that he has, that he gives himself. He was like, I think I'm terrible. I think the line quality I do is like, he really went in on himself, and he was like, it takes a lot for me as an artist to acknowledge that, but also work to try and like subvert that thought process. And it's a huge thing that really stuck out with me, and I try and talk about it a lot because it does affect you in a lot of different ways, and it's important to talk about it out loud, because as artists, I don't know about you guys, but I'm constantly comparing myself to other people's artwork and being like, I didn't do lighting as good as this, my composition is as great as that one, or my pose is as cool as that one. And the second you start comparing yourself, you're already like at a negative, you're already losing that argument with yourself. So it's really important to kind of try and be your own cheerleader in a very odd way, and having I think there's a healthy amount of like delusional confidence that as an artist, we are our own worst critics. And I've seen this across this board when people show their work or they're insecure about something, we're really hard on ourselves. So it's really important to not only try and raise the people around you, but also turn that inward a little bit and like be proud of yourself, be proud of the work, and just keep putting one foot in front of the next, and really just try and slowly advance your skills and do research and take classes and continually try and push your craft. Because I don't know who said it or who came up with it, but I hear Constantine and Jared and Luca say a lot, it's like at the end of the day, your image is your strongest skill. That image at the end of the day represents all of your cumulative skills and effort on that show. So that's where you have to put all of that effort, but also be kind to yourself in that process, because as artists, we are very, very harsh on ourselves. And but also, like everyone said, no one dies if we don't turn this stuff in. So it's like there's no cost to your own self-esteem that's worth that toll it takes. So like, be kind to yourself, be kind to those around you. Everyone is going through that process. Everyone is an artist. We all put on these big facades, but at the end of the day, we're all just artists on the inside. So I think it is important to have those conversations as much as it is about like the awesome shows we work on. This stuff does take a toll, and like taking care of your mental health and your physical health. All these different things are really important to take into consideration when you get in this industry, because then there's also the other side of the people that we work with, like our bosses and clients, that will try and chip away just as much at your own self-worth as you do to yourself. So don't let it come from both the inside and outside. Like, it's gonna come from the outside anyways, so just like if you fortify yourself in that way, it is really helpful to really navigate this industry, because you need to have decently thick skin to navigate the film industry. It does take a lot.
I just have something to say about that. Talent also is just a small part of being successful. You could be the most unbelievable illustrator on the planet, but if no one wants to be around you, you will not get hired. And you
Or
will
if you're
not
not
work.
willing to work hard.
So,
Yeah.
and even if you have talent and people love being around you, if you're not a go-getter, if you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to work. So there are all sorts of puzzle pieces that go together with success. It's not just talent. So if you're not the most talented illustrator or artist, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've got all the other components.
Something else that I'll add to that too is that all of you need to know that feeling comes up for everyone. So the one thing that I will tell people is like there's consistency in inconsistency, meaning that it's probably the most consistent thing in this industry is it being inconsistent, right? So if you can kind of wrap your head mentally around what I'm saying, then you know not to panic, because it's just a natural occurrence. So one of the ways that I did this is very early on in my career, I would talk to like some of my bosses, right? I would talk to people that had storied, well-established, like they've worked on every single thing known to man. And you know what they would say? The same thing that I'm thinking. Every time I finish a job, I think I'll never work again. And it's like, what? Or, like every time, like just that thought process, we all have it. Or One thing that I learned from some of the concept artists up here now is just like looking to maybe self-edit. Like I constantly look at my skills and try to figure out what I need or what I lack and what I can get better at. But we're all doing that, and the key thing to getting past that is to not make it so negative you get stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can change your perspective to it and be like, you're gonna hate the work you do. As soon as it's finished, you're gonna hate it. And don't take it as a negative thing. Take it as a good thing, because the next one will be better. So that's what you want to push yourself towards. Don't think about I just wasted my time. No, the next one is even more exciting, and it's gonna get better and better. So
It's at the end of the day, all of those thought process, it's like energy, and it's where you really try and direct that. It's that anxiety and all of those internal feelings. If you're able to really harness that energy and put it in different, like if you're like, okay, I'm feeling really terrible about my anatomy, and you can sit there and wallow in it, but you can also take that energy that your body's going through to generate those emotions and put them into research and doing a drawing course online, or live figure study, or taking courses on anatomy and buying anatomy. Like, there's different ways that you can try and focus that into improving yourself.
We're going to be louder than them.
that panel is good.
I was literally about to say, let's compete.
Yeah, let's just start banging on the walls.
Should
Let's
we
go.
do it right now?
Yes.
All right, everybody. 1, 2, 3.
Awesome. That just made me feel so much better.
I had one other thing to add on this, because we were doing a similar panel and talking about imposter syndrome, and my reaction was like, "What is that?"
Hold on, Raph, they're challenging us.
Oh my God.
Sorry, my friend.
Okay, back to Raph.
But it wasn't from like a egotistical place. It was from a like.
Completely into this. We're gonna win.
This isn't about the panel anymore, guys.
We are all in this together.
This is war.
It was from like a place of seeing like a lot of like younger artists get online and kind of bash themselves, and I was
Yeah.
just like trying to challenge that, because like you have to kind of be your own like cheerleader. However, I said that in a time which I was also like, oh, I had a lot of work, but now it's like it's a little dry, it's a little Sahara,
little slow
like
right
Sahara-ish out there in the industry, just because of just a lot of like industry stuff that we can't control. And so it kind of like finally crept up a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, you thought you were okay, huh?
Yeah.
But it's just like, I say all that to say, I think there's also a bit of an understanding that you have to have about industry in general. It's not just your own skill set. It's about pay attention to when Netflix might gut an entire animation. You know, like pay attention to when big mergers happen. Like that stuff is going to impact you. And just know that when the jobs do dry up, because they will, because it's entertainment, it's not on you. Like there's always a chance to improve your own skill set, but like chances are, there's just, not even chances are, it's just there are so many things moving around that are so much bigger than us and have so much more gravitational pull, that just try to zoom out a little bit and realize
Yeah.
it's not you.
There's one constant of emotion that flows through every single person in the film industry, which is the second a job ends and you don't immediately have something lined up, the thought immediately is, I will never work again. Work is going to dry up. I am going to be destitute on the street. Like it.
Or I'm blacklisted. Everyone hates me. I failed at my last
exactly. I'm
job.
never going to work in Hollywood again. Yeah, it goes through everybody's mind.
All right, well, thank you guys. So I just have some random questions here that I'm going to throw to the group, and anyone who wants to take them, go for it. Constantine, you actually touched on this, you working in practical effects. I wanted to ask you guys about other roles you've played on projects. Like Constantine, you've worked in practical effects. Greg, you've worked as like an ager dyer, a PA before you were doing concept art. I did a stint in automotive design as a clay modeler randomly for a couple of years. And I was just wondering if you could talk about...
Forgot to mention I was a model.
You're such a liar.
Oh, thanks.
So yeah, I would just love if you guys could talk about those experiences and how it sort of lent itself to improving your skills as concept artists.
As far as practical effects for me is the foundation of everything that that I utilize today. So learning materials, learning sculpting tools, different facets of building a creature or a suit. All of that still applies today, and so I actually feel it's a major part of why I luckily still get hired, is because of that knowledge in itself, is the material and how to build something. My boss ingrained in me at that time, when I was 21, 22 years old, when we go into meetings and we present a design, it needs to be functional, it needs to work, and we need to explain to the client, who is going to be paying our bills for the next 8 months, that whatever we're going to deliver, it's going to work on set. And so there's a lot of understanding the practical element of how something will work. And so, yeah, there you go.
Greg?
And for me, it was I worked as a PA for probably way too long, but honestly, if there's any department you want to get into, if there's a job you want to do, when I came into the industry and everyone was like, you have to be a PA, you have to do this, you have to do that, there's so many people who skip that step and go straight to the job. But honestly, working as a PA in the department, I played in other departments, catering, working on set in different departments, but when I got to costumes as a PA, you get to unfiltered see every single job, every single department within costumes, whether it's agers and dyers, the manufacturing shop, costumers, assistant costume designers, supervisors. As the PA, you are the go-between of all of those things, and you see how your department functions, and that is incredibly important, whether it's just knowing the flow of how everything works, knowing the different personality types that sit in each of those positions, and also the politics of how the department runs. Departments are like a dysfunctional family that is brought together to achieve a task, and knowing who the anxious person is, knowing who the depressed person is, knowing who the angry person, like those emotions do exist in each role within the department. So those skills are incredibly helpful to kind of learn how to navigate a department, and being able to age and dye clothes. It's informed my illustrations is to not have everything look perfectly new, and being able to put age and distress into things. Sometimes suits are always kind of perfectly new, but those kinds of things help inform. The more knowledge you have about your department and your job before you actually do it, I think is a massive benefit. I got to see Phil and other illustrators work as a PA, and being able to see how they operate before being in that arena myself was like immensely helpful. So I suggest it if you can.
Yeah, and for me, I actually first started in costume illustration, and then I took a detour and went to work at the Honda design studio as a clay modeler. And when I left that and went back into concept, I realized that really taught me about how things actually exist in 3D space. So then I could see that my, clothing was following the form of the anatomy much more clearly and whatnot. So yeah, having those other experience kind of refreshes your skills and gives you new perspectives on how you actually do this job.
I think for me, I started in the industry when I was 3 as an actor, so 3 until about 17, right? So that was like the first formative years for me, and that taught me a lot of things, right? But it also taught me a love for film. And then when I went to school, I started production designing. So I was a production designer before I came into costume. So I think now those skills help me do my job better, because the acting side of it helps me figure out the emotion of the character, or what like they would do, or what they would wear, or like why. And then the production design side helped to give me function. It helped to give me a lot of formative function, I think, in terms of like how I organize my time. Because it's a very functional, difficult job. You have to be very organized to be a production designer. And so I think that those skills kind of helped follow into, I think all the skills, life skills, help you follow into what you're doing. Travel is another one that's a big one, or just research. But those were the skills that I think helped me in the jobs that I did before I landed where I am now.
I also want to throw this to you, because your career path when you were in this industry and then you had that detour into motherhood, I know the answer to this question, but that is a very specific skill set. Do you think that there were benefits.
Motherhood?
As it as it pertains to this industry, because I know when I'm writing emails, I'm stream of thought. I'm like, how dare you? Don't you, like, that kind of thing. I go to you for all my emails because you have a very diplomatic, calm way of approaching things. Like, I feel like a lot of those things, those skills from motherhood do apply in different areas. You're always very level-headed. You always, there's areas in this industry where you should care about things very intensely, but others that a lot of people fall into a trap of, like, so it's like
Well, you can't get caught up in drama, the
Yeah.
drama of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, you're very good at being like, oh, that's okay, cool. I'm just gonna, like, that doesn't phase you at all, because it's having your girls probably teaches you to just be like, no, you can like, no.
Yeah, you'll drive yourself crazy. But what I wanted to say also was, when I did come back, nobody knew I was back, and I had a problem that nobody knew I was back. And how was I going to get hired if nobody remembered me? So I volunteered. I realized I needed to volunteer. So where can I volunteer and be seen? And so I chose Comic-Con. So I volunteered at Comic-Con, which is the best thing I ever did. And I did it for like 7 straight years. And that's where we all, like, I got to know these guys and we all bonded, and I got to know Wacom, and so you can't be proud. You always have to work really hard and hope that maybe you can just work hard and meet those people. Like, I also was a dresser on set. So, I mean, you just got to get your foot in somewhere, and that's where you start making your relationships and finding your path. You don't go right to the job.
All right, so that actually leads me into my last question. But before I do that, if anyone who has a question wants to line up behind this microphone here, we'll move to Q&A right after that. And crickets. Don't all
Guys,
Don't all
calm
come at
down.
once.
Calm down.
See, I just, one last thing. If any of you have some general advice for artists that are trying to break into this industry, please do so.
Join the union. Yeah, start looking into the unions. Basically, within the film industry, the vast majority of TV and films are controlled. You have to be a part of a union in order to participate in television and film. There are some exceptions, but if you're looking at your Marvels, Warner Brothers, Fox, which is now Disney too, everything's Disney. But getting into a union, whether it's an art department, local 800, or costume designers guild, local 892, just starting to look into that process and what it entails. Essentially, it is a membership card that allows you to work in this industry. It does not guarantee you work. So outside of that, really starting to, like, follow artists online, ask questions. I know I'm constantly responding to DMs and emails, people who are looking how to get into the industry. It might take a couple months, but I will try and do my best to clear through those DMs as best I can. And yeah, just really look into the union side of things, because that's kind of our bread and butter, how we are protected, how we get our health insurance. Yeah, I think that was good, yeah.
I'm going to say be actionable. That's one word that I've learned, especially being older, like, you know, later in life, is action. Action. Don't sit and complain, do something. If you see a problem, solve it, fix it. Work with others to fix it, or to work with others to get up and actually make a change. And the last one I'll say is be empathetic. Like, think about other people, put yourself in other people's shoes, and try to combine all of that back together.
Yeah, one thing I learned from my mentor, Jared Morantz, at school was here, sitting right here in front
Jared
of
is right here.
Jared is right here.
He's
Hi,
sitting
Jared.
right here.
Sitting right here on the front.
I don't know why he's
Morantz.
not on this panel.
Jared, stand up.
Stand
up, Jared.
up.
Follow
Jared,
him on
stand up.
Instagram.
That's the one thing. One thing you said, Jared, in class back in the day that really stuck with me was that if you want to be better, don't be the best one in the room. Put yourself in a room when people are better than you, so you can learn from them, and don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no shame in asking questions. If you don't know how to do something, ask a question. The artists around you will make you a better artist.
Can I just quickly add?
No. Just kidding.
No.
JK.
These days, there's a lot of online. You have so many things online at your beck and call, and so if you're good and you put yourself out there, trust me, people will recognize that. I mean, dealing with some biz dev with Andy and Ryan, if you're an amazing artist, they don't care your background. If you can do the job, that's all that matters. So just put yourself out there. Yeah.
All right, so let's go to the Q&A. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a bit of a question in terms of guidance. My whole family has been in the film industry. My mother's the director, producer. My father's a producer. My brother's a cinematographer.
You're set.
Recently, yeah. But the thing is that I kind of diverted from that in the idea of going to more conceptual design and whatnot. I do also screenwrite, but I don't know how to bridge that gap. I write scripts, they're being made into productions and whatnot, but I just don't know how to be able to combine those two, aside from pitching my own intellectual properties and whatnot. And if that's the way, then how do I get there? Because I'm ready to take the steps, I'm ready to work hard. I just would love some insight on like the optimal paths.
I mean, the first thing that I was going to say is if you have those two skill sets, to me it sounds like you should just be pitching your own ideas all the time.
Okay.
That's probably the best way to combine those two things together, because if you can write, but then you can also visually show what it is, that's pretty much what pitches are, right? I think that would be the first step, is to kind of write out some stuff and actually support it with your artwork, and then pitching the ideas, and then from there maybe get some other people that are like-minded, or get some other artists with you that can help you flesh out the pitch deck. And then that from there, once that is into production, if you wanted to take it further, you can actually work on the productions yourself with some friends to make sure that the things, it's more, I think for you it'd be more about control. With being able to visually show the things that you are writing, there's more control there for you to be able to steer the narrative as far as possible to make sure that the end product turns out the way you want. And that's a very rare skill to have.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was gonna say, I mean, I always say if I were to do it over, I'd probably be a screenwriter, you know. And if you have that skill set, man, I would just say exploit that as much as possible. You're on the better side. I mean, concept art is great, and but do both like that, you're unstoppable.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
There's power in that skill
Yeah.
set because there's control, which
Yeah.
means that you're not just someone that like is a cog in the machine. You can be the machine.
Thank you. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's been difficult, because last year, I'll be, I guess, a little personal. I didn't really know if I wanted to continue at school or whatnot, because I didn't really know what I was doing. Am I putting half of my effort in one and half in the other? I only have so much to give, so to speak. So I appreciate that.
That's one thing to remember
Yeah.
too. Like sometimes if you want to start in a business, like that's because I always wanted to do characters, creatures, a costume, and there was too many things, and I had to start where I was stronger. So use your strength. Like there must be one thing where you're stronger at. Use that to get in, and then you can expand yourself from there.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good to have that the skill that brings the finances while you explore the others is also just like a very practical thing to handle as well. So the fact that you have that duality of those two things, just grow them both. But if you got to work on the finances, focus on one, grow it, get into that industry, and then it allows you to get your foot in the door. Keep
And
going.
quick, just think about them. They're both communication. One is writing, and then the other one's visual communication. So you're just communicating twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Yeah, good luck.
Hello.
Is it okay if I ask two questions?
Sure.
Of course.
All right. The first question is, is it like a good idea? Like, all right. So say like you started like, is it like starting late? Like you didn't start doing drawing or stuff like when you were young. Like, is it cool? Is like that good? Because like I didn't really start until I was like 18, and even then I didn't switch my major to fine arts until like last year.
That's completely fine. I mean, you start where you start. I know of some people that just started art in their 30s or in their 40s. Like, you start where you start. If you have the passion for it, it doesn't matter when you start. It's just about making sure that you work hard.
Yeah, you might have to work a little harder just
Yeah.
because you started later and you have a lot of ground to catch up, but it's totally doable.
18
Yeah.
is plenty young.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
you're
good.
good.
You're good.
Yeah.
Hard work. That's all.
I'll
Alright,
just
now-
tell this. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I was going to tell you just a quick little story. When I was in high school, I was in like some super advanced art school or art class because I'd been drawing since like 3, and
Super.
There was a guy who auditioned over the summer to be in this class. And I mean, he looked like his drawings were from 3rd grade. And the teacher told him, "You're just not good enough being here." He was in the class 6 months later, doing stuff at our level. He got so mad that this teacher told him no,
Yeah.
that he would just draw portraits every single day. And he was really good. So like the word talent is useless. Talent is actually hard work. Like you might have a predilection to doing something at a young age, but like that doesn't mean that you're going to be good or better than the person that just starts tomorrow. Hard work.
Thank you. That's great to know. Now, for the second question, as time goes on, artists have always faced these problems of like, whether it be like photos, like back in the like turn of the, like in the 1800s, people thought photos were like replacing art, or the fact that switching over from 2D to 3D animation. Now, a question is, how do y'all feel about AI? Do you feel?
Instant rage.
I was trying to avoid that
Full
topic.
instant rage.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just gonna say
It angered me as much as it angers y'all.
it's a hard no for me personally.
I know, but like, how do you feel? Like, do you feel like it's a threat?
A little.
It's unethical.
Like,
yeah.
in terms of like,
That's-
do you feel like it could like potentially ruin like people trying to get into the industry after you guys?
It might screw up some young artists too, because if you think about it, a lot of small jobs now that need some quick illustrations are getting taken over because people are like, oh, let's just use AI and we get some images, so you don't get those entry jobs where you can get, you know, your bones solid with it. So that might happen, but the thing is that to remember with this AI thing is that it's basically a mixing tool, so it goes online, grabs some images, mix them up together. Doesn't create from scratch. So there is always going to be somebody that needs to create those images. And also, if you create your image, somebody else is using it, that's a copyright infringement. You cannot mix up my work.
The legalities of it are very murky at best. But also, I saw a prompting workshop online.
Are you serious?
And for the younger artists, my biggest concern is the time spent learning AI or time spent in AI. Figure drawing class online, learn anatomy, learn how clothing drapes, do live sketching, gouache, sculpting. Like there are 1,000 different ways that you could better spend your time as a new artist coming into this industry or wanting to get into this industry. As far as I'm concerned, at the end of it, you have a reference image, maybe, and that's being generous. But your time and skills are better spent elsewhere, because I know there's kind of an unofficial rule going around right now that there's no AI in certain projects, because these bigger studios are unsure of the legality of it. There are a lot of artwork that you can, there is a lot of AI images that you can generate that has a bunch of different artist signatures overlaid on top of each other and pixelated out. So like I want to see how this whole legality of all this pans out, but it's a hard no for me.
As a young artist, just know this, all of us, all of the professionals that are here, even when we all talk to each other, the key thing that we'll find is whenever you hit a wall, for me, I find when you hit a wall, it's because you've stopped learning. So it feels like you need to put something else in your brain. The other reason you'll hit a wall is because you're relying on the tools so much, your foundation skills are trash. So that's another thing. No, serious. It's a true thing.
Yeah.
Your foundation skills are so important that no matter how much you cover them up, they'll always bite you. I could be sitting and I'm like, something is wrong here. And then one of these guys will be like, your ellipses are going the wrong way. And I'm like, oh, that's what it is. Like, I can't find it. It's something so small. So you have to learn to draw. You have to learn to paint. You have to do your anatomy. Like, and if you don't, every single thing you build on top of it, it'll always be there, like coming back to bite you. It'll always come back. So it's one of those things that with this, what I worry is that young kids will go and they just start going into this thing and they're flying free and they don't learn any of the foundational skills to back themselves up.
All right, so we have about 5 minutes left, so I think we want to get through everybody.
There is an AI talk this weekend. You guys should go to it.
Yeah,
Hi, my question was about the use of 3D in the industry. So I can keep this quick. Like, what do you guys think? Like, is it still mostly 2D with some 3D? Has it become a really big 3D with like 2D painting over? Like, what's your opinion on like the mergence of the two and like practice?
I still don't use 3D at all.
Learn it.
It's a skill like anything else. It is a tool you put in your toolbox. There are people whose careers have a heavier majority of 3D, whether it's modeling for video games or sculpting for statues, for sideshow and different things like that. I love that I'm answering this question as if I'm Raph. But it has the ability. It adds support to your skills. Being able to have an extra skill is never a bad thing. So I would say if you have the opportunity, desire, and drive to learn it, it is a lot, but it will only help better further your skills. But going back to the foundation thing, if you don't have those foundational skills, your 3D will reflect that just as much as a drawing would. So I don't know.
All right. Next question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. I have a question for like my friends. Most of my friends are here from different parts of the world, so I'm lucky to be here in SoCal and go to like figure drawing classes in Nucleus and like other places like 9B Collective. But for my friends, so I can ask them, or so I can ask you to, for them, what would you recommend people that are not native to like good countries that have a lot of big art schools or like even industries in their stuff, because they tend to like outsource to China or Korea or something like that, to connect to people that are like in the States? Or how do you go ahead.
I think I can answer your question because I come from Italy and there's none of this industry is there. So I had the big question like, how do I get in? Thanks to the internet, you can learn now. There's DVDs and tutorials, so you feel more connected for sure. And honestly, nowadays, if I had to do it all over again, I don't know if I would have had to move right now, because everything is so connected. Everybody has access to ArtStation or LinkedIn, all these websites. You might be able to do whatever job you want, because I know there's so many artists in East of Europe. They're amazing and they get hired all the time. So there's a possibility to do it where it doesn't matter where you're located. The location helped me push my career a little further because you get to meet people. I get to meet these artists and I get to be more involved and I get to learn more. That's the one thing I will say. You might want to move if that's the case. And that's what I had to do. I was 19 and I had to get on a flight because I knew otherwise my career wouldn't be as further as I am nowadays. I remember learning from the DVDs alone in a room in Italy when I was 17, 18, and I had all these questions and I had nobody to ask them to. I landed in LA, I went to Noman for some courses, I turned around, I'll ask a question, that guy solved my normal maps issues in like 5 minutes. Oh yeah, you click here and you click, I'm like, God damn it. It was that easy, just because you have the people there. So if you can go in a place where the community is there, it would probably be better for you. Okay. I know it's a lot, but
it's helpful to have that backup of community of artists, because we do give a lot of works, a lot of jobs back and forth, and it's knowing people personally, their temperament, their skill sets intimately is incredibly helpful. Also, like I don't know how technical of a rule it is anymore, but I mean, post-COVID things have changed a little bit, but ultimately the rule of most of the larger studio productions in California, you're looking at, again, I always say DC and Marvel as the big ones, but those kinds of large budget productions are union film projects or television projects. Those do require you, for the most part, to be in the state. I'm going to speak at least to California, where the bulk of film commercial work is based out of, whether it sends the productions or shoot in Georgia, New York, Canada, or even Budapest these days. The crew is based out of California for the most part, and unions do have those jurisdictional laws that do kind of lock you into California or Nashville, Georgia, depending on where you want to work and to what capacity. Concept art work is not limited to California, but if you do want to work in film and television in the very commercial side of things, there is always non-union projects that are of smaller projects depending on what they are when it comes to like costumes, character designs, and creatures, but that is kind of the unfortunate reality of it. But it's post-COVID, things have changed slightly. I just don't know to what degree.
Last thing I'll say too is tell your friends to build it. Meaning, if they're all in the same place, tell them to stop looking to try to figure out who they can talk to over here. Look to each other and build the community where it is. That's a key thing, because if they don't build it, they'll always be looking to figure out how to be a part of a community that's not where they are.
Okay.
But if they're all together, even if there's like a few of them or like 10, have them all work together to build their own concept community locally.
Yeah, it's a pretty big Discord, medium, 100, 200
That's
people.
awesome.
So
That's
well,
exactly the way to start.
thank you very much.
So
I
we're
appreciate
officially
it.
over our time. Do we have time for one more?
Yeah.
No one's stopping us.
Yes.
right?
Until they kick us out. Go
We love
for
your
it.
hat.
Thank you. I'll make it quick.
It's okay.
What's the best way to deal with like art or mental block when it comes to doing art? Because that's something I struggle really hard with.
Work through it.
Work through it. Yeah. That's what everyone.
I'm serious.
Constantine goes to the steam room. I
I
know.
love it. How do you break through a mental art block? You just do it.
No, it's because it's about the practice of letting that thing not stop you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you let it stop you once, you'll probably let it stop you the second time. Like just finish it. It could be trash. Like
Yeah.
trash to you. I'm not, but like it could be trash, but just finish it and get on to the next thing. Or go walk outside. Go
Yeah.
get around some nature. Like that stuff is the most inspirational. Doing something physical has always helped me think through a problem.
Sure.
I said it earlier, learn something new.
Yeah.
So like whenever, like I remember working on Black Panther, I got stuck bad and I didn't know what to do. So I took a break. I created a whole mood board, like a sheet of just African masks so that I could focus on what African aesthetic was. And then I got right back into it. So
Okay.
just take some time and learn something new.
Yeah,
Okay.
learn to listen to yourself. What do you need? Do I need to send away, go away from the computer? Do I need to read a book? Do I need to meditate? Like do something else then. Or sometimes what I do is I throw more hours into the problem. Like if I'm working on something, I was like, I don't know if this is coming out. Maybe you know what? I'm just gonna work another 10 hours until it comes out.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, as a concept artist, you will have to have something at the end of the day, so you will get it done.
Yeah. You got to get it done. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so before we wrap it up, I have an announcement. We will all be heading down to the Art Directors Guild booth. It's number 1402 to do a little meet and greet. Maybe we can give you guys some prints, look at some portfolios, like whatever you guys want. So please head down there to meet us if you like. Otherwise, thank you guys so much. This was great.